Well, we had a question for you today. You spent so many years taking this understanding of the principles into prison
Mhm.
and other areas of life as well, business and mental health field, but particularly in prison, hearing your stories of people's lives, the inmates, and how their lives changed
Mhm.
when they began to see how life works, understand these principles. Um, but recently, I heard you say something that the principles are not to help people change their lives,
Right,
but
right,
to have
right.
a in order to have a better
Yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But they do get a better life.
right,
So
right.
how does it work that the
Yeah,
principles aren't for people to
yeah,
change,
yeah, yeah,
and yet how does that work?
yeah. It's a paradox. And coming from the helping profession, my background, I have a master's in clinical psychology, and it's all about helping people deal with their issues, helping them get over whatever that issue is. And diagnosing, maybe prescribing medication and helping people because people are suffering. And so that was my whole approach. I was a social worker first, and then I shifted into doing clinical psychotherapy with people. And that was pretty much it, is kind of having a way of understanding the person and diagnosing them with their issue, and then coming up a way for them to deal with it, either cognitively or go into psychodynamic, where we look at your past and all that good stuff. So when I heard the principles, right away, I knew it was the opposite of what I was doing. So that was the first thing that struck me, that this is completely the opposite. And so as I started to teach the principles to all kinds of folks, but people in prison, people would say, well, yeah, these people really need help. I mean, their lives have been pretty messed up. And you need to go in and help them change. And all of the other programs, that's what they're there for, with very good intention. Here's what I realized as I started to understand that we're just here to help people understand where their experience comes from. Like, why did all of this stuff happen? Like, why do some people commit crimes and other people don't? Like, what's up with that? Where does all of our experience comes from? Your good feelings, your bad feelings, all of that stuff. So I'm just there to show them the blueprint to what's behind them as a human being. Now, I have no attachment that they should change. And you would find that strange going into a prison and looking at a group of guys, especially I'm in the gang unit, or I'm in a unit where they have red shirts, which means they've done violent crimes, they've killed other people. So you would think, well, what would be the point of going in there if you're not going to help them change? Well, they actually told me one day, they said, Cathy, you are different, not me personally, but any teacher that had been in there that teach the principles. You guys are different. And I said, well, what do you mean? Well, other people come in to help us, and we appreciate that. But you guys, other people come in like this, here's the helper and here's them. When we go in, it's this. They feel the difference. They can, and it's hard for them to describe. And so I said, well, actually, here's what we see. I would be arrogant to think that my wisdom would be the wisdom that you should believe to help you. See, we see that you have your own wisdom, that you have your own answers, and that we just want you to understand where that comes from and what keeps you from connecting to it, like how it works, how your mind works. So we're just here to show you that. And then you will have your own insights about your life. You have what you need to know. And see, that's the difference. And I tell them straight out, I'm not here to, help reduce your sentence or help you to stop using drugs or help you to not do the things that or you should be out of the gang. See, I'm not here for that. I'm here that you're no different than all other human beings. We all operate the same way. And let me show you how that is. And at the beginning, because some of these guys in the gang unit, they're sitting there like this. And they're sitting there to look good to the judge. Well, I'm going to take this stupid class because it's going to look good when I go before the judge, because they're trying to beat a third strike. Because if you get a third strike, you get 25 to life without parole. So they're trying to beat that third charge. So they say they're leaving the gang and they go into the special unit and they take these classes. So they have other classes, 12-step, learning about drugs, all of that kind of stuff. So in my class, at first they're sitting there, here, all right, here's another class. And who can this lady tell us? Because, I'm coming in, I'm like me. And as I'm starting to connect to them and starting to talk about the principles in a way that makes sense in their culture, they start to kind of tilt their head a little bit like, oh, could you say that again? Like, it starts to catch their ear because they have never heard it before. They have never heard things like, you have your innate well-being. You've always had your innate well-being. That has never been damaged. That has never been taken from you. No matter what you've done out here, that's still inside you. They've never heard that before. In fact, Miss Beverly, who we all know about Miss Beverly, she used to call it their blue dot. So we're talking these tough gang guys, and she said, we all have this blue dot. She'd draw a drawing of a human on the whiteboard, and she'd draw this big blue dot as a symbol for their innate well-being, and that they have it, everybody has it, no matter what. You're born with it, it's the same from when you were born to when you die and everything in between. And they're like, they get hit with that. They really get hit with that. Really? Because you can imagine how they feel. They've let down their families, guilt. You can feel the heaviness in these units. You can just feel the heaviness. And so when somebody points that out to them, they're like, you've got to be kidding me. But they start to get that. They finally realize that it's true. So again, we're just telling them what they have as a human being inside of them. And that it's not on me to tell them how to live their life. That again, that would be arrogant of me. That they have the wherewithal to do whatever they want to do, whether they want to stay in the gang or not. I'm not here to talk about that. So that's the difference. See, that's the difference. Now, when people start to realize that they still have innate well-being and that they still are like any other human being, and they understand that I'm in here because I was in thought and I didn't know it. When they start to realize that, well, what starts to happen is their minds start to lighten up. Their level of understanding starts to come up. And when our level of understanding comes up, all kinds of interesting things starts happening that I couldn't even predict. And so I'll be sitting there and we'll be just doing a class. And so this one gentleman, he said, he raised his hand and he said, I wouldn't be here if I knew these principles. I wouldn't be in that life if I knew this. And he said, why are we just learning this now? And I said, well, I'm sorry, this is as soon as I could get to you because I didn't know it till I was 45 myself. And I could tell you stories of amazing transformations that even they don't expect that that's going to happen. It's even a surprise to them. So yes, they do change, but it's as a result of having an understanding. It's not me directing it or me helping them fix it. It's them realizing for themselves. I have a cute story. Usually they're in the class to get their certificate. So when they go before the judge, they have all their little certificates. And this one gentleman, he went before the judge for sentencing. And he shared that he was getting ready to make his case. I've done these classes, he's getting ready to do this whole thing with the judge. And he said his family had pretty much washed their hands of him. They were done. In fact, they were happy that he was going to do time. Maybe that will teach him a lesson. So his wife didn't want him to have anything to do with the kids. His mother, they were just totally done with him. But they came to the sentencing when he was going to give the sentence to kind of hopefully that he's going to learn, you're going to learn the hard way. So this inmate, he says, Cathy, something weird happened. I was getting ready to make my case. And all of a sudden I looked at the judge and I said, sir, you give me whatever sentence you think I deserve. Now that he said the words were coming out of his mouth, and he's like, like, where is that coming from? Overriding all this other stuff. And then the other thing that happened when his family heard that, they could tell he was different. He said, Cathy, I got my family back.
Oh.
I got my family back.
Mm.
So right in front of the judge, all this thing happens. He said, I can't even explain it, Cathy. I said, I know, that's how it works. It sneaks up on you, doesn't it? And again, of course, he got his sentence, whatever, but that wasn't the issue. It was, he finally got real and realized, hey, what have I been doing in my life? Like, so he looked, hey, you're right. You give me the sentence I deserve. And judges usually don't hear that.
Yes.
So you can imagine, and that's just a small story. There are other stories that I would come out of there like, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. So the power and understanding, that's what it is. If you're just in thought and you're lost in thought and you're at the mercy of thought, then the best you can do is kind of ride it out, cope with it, do the best you can. So you'll do things to feel better. Some people go to extreme, they go into gangs and drugs, and some people, we just become workaholics, or we're into shopping, or we eat too much, or we always need to, be around certain people, and I'm not okay unless I'm with my grandkids. So if I'm not with my grandkids, I'm sad. When I'm with them, see, we all come up with ways to feel good, but they're usually contingent on something outside. See, not realizing the thing that I'm looking for, I have already. And so that's the difference between understanding and working on people changing. Night and day different.
That's amazing. And you use that term, the power of understanding. And as you were speaking, it is so apparent that what was occurring in your classes is that they were becoming empowered, to use kind of the old self-help,
Yeah.
self-empowerment. And it's so interesting that it seems like true empowerment can only come from seeing the blueprint of how life works, as opposed to having to deal with every little thing that comes up, because you take care of one thing and then something else pops up. It's kind of whack-a-mole, this game.
Exactly.
Like you never get it all taken care of. But when we see that how life works.
Yeah. And it's not to say, I mean, one generally, it's actually on film. This gentleman, he was in our class, and he really got impacted with the principles. And he got released, and this is more minimum security, so he got released, and he said over time he started using methamphetamine again, and he was really out there, just getting high and just really getting totally caught up in the drugs. And he said he was sitting against a tree in this public park, which I happen to live close to. And he was there just totally out of his mind on methamphetamine. And all of a sudden, two thoughts came into his head. This is how he shared. He said, two thoughts came into his head. One was my name, Cathy. The second was thought. He got himself up and he turned himself back in.
Wow.
He went to the place where you turn yourself in. He said, I violated probation. I've been using drugs. I need to go back in. Now, who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that? So he's back in. So I see him. I said, "Oh, good to see your." I'm not glad to see them, meaning I know something went wrong, but I'm glad that they're okay. They're in one piece, that they're still alive. And he said, Cathy, I I need to tell you something. This why I'm back here. And when he shared the story, the other men are like, you did what? You turned your, but you know what he said? He said, I had this feeling if I stayed like that for another day, I would end up dead.
Wow.
I just felt it. If I didn't do something, I was going to. So his wisdom helped him realize that he was going to end up dead if he didn't do something. And that's what he did.
Mm.
Wow.
See, it's, and you know, you can't make that stuff up.
No.
You know, so when they share, when they teach it back to me or they share their stories, I'm just sitting there like, again, understanding. And there are way more stories of where that came from. Or in the corporate world, same thing. Very successful people. And I had one situation where a woman, we were listening to Sid Banks speak at this corporate event. And what happens is it cuts through. I mean, when Sid speaks, people can sometimes become emotional. I mean, it's just inevitable.
Mm.
And so I was there, and Dick and a few other, we were there to kind of be available in case that happened. And sure enough, this woman starts getting emotional. So I escort her out. We're sitting in a room, and I said, you know, it's okay. This is normal. You know, where everybody tends to have this experience. She says, well, I need to tell you something. I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. And she was a fighter pilot. Fighter pilot. Can you imagine? So she's working, she had just retired from being a fighter pilot. She's working in this big defense company. And she says to me, my husband has been battering me for years. And I'm just like, whoa. And she had been sitting on top of that because she didn't want anybody to know, because that would mean something about her. But she stayed. And I'm like, okay, this is good. All right, you're fine. You're okay. You're safe. But you just never know what people are sitting on. So when you get an understanding, things that you just think you can keep under wraps, they just come out, whether you want it to or not. And that happened to me many times. So things just emerge. And one day I said to Roger, I don't like that. You know, I feel like I'm falling apart. He said, no, the system's just clearing itself out.
Mm.
It's all that old stuff, it's just coming out.
Mm. Mm.
And it's okay. Just don't make meaning. Just let it come through. And so that I'm so grateful that I have just a teeny bit of understanding of this, because a little bit goes a long way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the theme then is understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, Cathy. Thanks so much for
Yeah.
sharing all of that.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah.
See you
I'll
next
do it
time.
again. Yeah, good.
Good.
Thanks,
All
Cathy.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Beautiful. Thank you.